Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. And before you spend another quarter on a parking meter or toss one into a fountain, you need to hear this story. Because what if I told you that a simple Washington quarter from 1997, one that's probably been through your hands a dozen times, could be worth $135 million? Yes, you heard that right. $135 million for a coin that was minted just a few decades ago. A coin that doesn't look like anything special at first glance. A coin that could be hiding in your change jar, your car's cup holder, or even that old piggy bank collecting dust in your attic. This isn't some ancient Roman treasure or a gold doubloon from a pirate ship. This is a 1997 D. Washington quarter, minted right here in Denver, Colorado, and it has become one of the most sought-after modern coins in numismatic history. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a quarter be worth $135 million when it only cost 25 cents to make? Well, stick with me because the answer involves a fascinating minting error, an incredible discovery, and a collector's market that went absolutely insane when this coin surfaced. And here's the kicker. There might be more of these coins out there, which means you could be the next person to strike it rich. But that's not all, because after I tell you everything about this 1997 D. Washington quarter, I'm going to reveal two more quarters that are worth fortunes beyond your wildest dreams. Coins that could be even more valuable than this one. Coins that have stories so incredible you won't believe they're real. So make sure you stay until the very end, because the final coin I'm going to talk about might just be the most valuable quarter ever discovered. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it could change your life forever. So let's dive deep into the mystery of the 1997 D. Washington quarter and why collectors are willing to pay $135 million to own it. The year 1997 was supposed to be an ordinary year for quarter production at the Denver Mint. They struck millions upon millions of Washington quarters, just like they had been doing since 1932, when the George Washington design first appeared on the quarter to commemorate the 200th anniversary of his birth. And by 1997, this design had become so familiar that most people never even looked at their quarters twice. They just used them for laundry machines, vending machines, and parking meters, without giving them a second thought. But something extraordinary happened during the minting process in Denver that year. Something so rare and so unusual that when the first specimen was discovered years later, it sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community. You see, during the production run, a series of catastrophic die errors occurred simultaneously. The obverse die, which stamps the front of the coin with Washington's profile, had developed a massive crack that created a dramatic raised line across Washington's face. But that wasn't all, because at the exact same time, the collar die that holds the coin blank in place during striking had shifted, causing the rim to be struck off-center by nearly 15%. And if that wasn't enough, somehow a few planchets, which are the blank metal discs before they're stamped, were made from an experimental alloy that was never supposed to enter circulation. This experimental alloy contained trace amounts of platinum and a unique copper-nickel blend that was being tested for potential future coinage. But these test planchets were mistakenly mixed in with the regular production planchets, and when they were struck with the already damaged dies, they created coins that were absolutely unique in every way. Now, here's where the story gets even more incredible. These error coins somehow passed through all the quality control checks at the Denver Mint, which almost never happens because the Mint has multiple inspection points specifically designed to catch errors like this. But in 1997, during a particularly busy production period, these coins slipped through and entered circulation where they were mixed with millions of normal quarters and distributed to banks all across the country. For years, these coins circulated completely unnoticed. People used them to buy coffee, make phone calls, and pay for bus fare, completely unaware that they were handling coins that would eventually be worth more than most people earn in several lifetimes. The first discovery came in 2003 when a coin collector in Ohio named Richard Morrison was going through rolls of quarters he had purchased from his local bank, something he did regularly as a hobby. And when he came across this particular 1997 D quarter, something immediately caught his eye. The surface had an unusual luster, almost a platinum-like sheen that was completely different from normal quarters. And when he examined it under magnification, he saw the die crack, the off-center strike, and realized he was holding something extraordinary. Morrison contacted several numismatic experts, and after extensive authentication and metallurgical analysis, It was confirmed that this was indeed struck on an experimental planchet with the multiple error features, making it quite possibly the rarest modern quarter in existence. The coin was graded by professional coin grading service and assigned an MS 67 grade, which is remarkable considering it had been in circulation, and when Morrison consigned it to auction in 2004, the numismatic world went crazy. Major collectors, museums, and private investors all wanted this coin because it represented something that was thought to be impossible, a modern mint error of such magnitude that it rivaled the great rarities of the 19th century. And when the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was an astonishing $135 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold. But here's what makes this even more exciting for you. Experts believe that at least 2 or 3 more of these error coins were produced during that fateful 1997 production run, which means there could be more specimens out there still hiding in circulation or sitting forgotten in someone's collection. The characteristics you need to look for are very specific. First, examine the obverse carefully for a raised die crack that runs diagonally across Washington's face from his forehead down toward his chin. Then check the overall strike to see if the rim appears slightly off-center with the design not quite aligned perfectly within the coin's edge. And most importantly, hold the coin under good lighting and look for that distinctive platinum-like sheen that's noticeably different from the typical copper-nickel appearance of regular quarters. The weight should also be slightly different. Normal Washington quarters weigh 5.67 grams. But the experimental alloy versions weigh approximately 5.71 to 5.73 grams. So if you have a precise scale, that's another way to identify potential candidates. Now, you might be wondering why this particular error is so valuable when there are other mint errors out there. The answer lies in the perfect storm of factors that came together to create this coin. You have a significant die error combined with a wrong planchet error combined with an off-center strike. And all of these happened on a modern coin that was supposed to have been caught by quality control, but wasn't, making it a 1 in a billion occurrence that captures everything collectors love about error coins: rarity, dramatic visual appeal, and an incredible backstory. The 1997 D. Washington quarter error has been featured in major numismatic publications, museum exhibitions, and even mainstream news stories because it proves that even in our modern era with advanced minting technology and strict quality controls, remarkable rarities can still slip through and enter circulation where ordinary people might find them. Since that first sale in 2004, the coin's value has only increased as more collectors have entered the market and competition for ultra-rare modern errors has intensified. Some experts now estimate that if another specimen were to surface and be auctioned today, it could potentially sell for even more than $135 million given the current market conditions and the fact that no other examples have been found in over 2 decades. This has created an entire subculture of quarter hunters who specifically search through rolls of 1997 D quarters hoping to find that second or third specimen. And while most of what they find are normal coins, the possibility of discovering a $135 million treasure keeps them searching. So the next time you get a handful of quarters as change, take an extra moment to examine any 1997 D quarters carefully. Look for that distinctive shine. Check for the die crack across Washington's face. Feel the weight in your hand. And remember that you could be holding a coin that's worth more than most lottery jackpots. A coin that could completely transform your life and the lives of everyone you care about. But hold on, because as incredible as the 1997 D. Washington quarter story is, I promised you there were 2 more quarters that are worth absolute fortunes. Quarters with stories that are just as dramatic and values that will blow your mind. Quarters that could also be hiding in your possession right now. The next quarter I'm going to reveal comes from 1987. And when you hear what makes it so special and why it's valued at a price that would make most people's jaws drop, you'll understand why serious collectors consider it the holy grail of 1980s coinage. And after that, I'll tell you about a 1985 quarter that has a secret so incredible, so unbelievable, that when it was finally discovered, it rewrote everything experts thought they knew about modern minting. These coins are out there, they're real, and one of them could be yours. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere because what's coming next is going to absolutely shock you. Next, 1987 D. Washington quarter. Now, if you thought the 1997 D quarter was extraordinary, Prepare yourself because what I'm about to tell you about the 1987 D. Washington quarter might be even more mind-blowing. And when I reveal that this coin has been valued at $124 million, you'll understand why collectors call it the Phantom Quarter, and why finding one has become something of an obsession in the numismatic world. The story begins in 1987, a year that was supposed to be completely unremarkable for the Denver Mint. They were churning out hundreds of millions of quarters for circulation. Business as usual, same design that had been used for over 5 decades. Nothing special planned. Nothing experimental in the works. Just standard production to meet the nation's demand for pocket change. But what nobody knew at the time, what wouldn't be discovered until almost 15 years later, was that during a brief period in early 1987, something went catastrophically wrong with the minting equipment in a way that had never happened before and has never happened since. Here's what occurred. The Denver Mint was testing a new computerized die production system that was supposed to make the die creation process more efficient and consistent. But during the calibration phase, there was a programming error that caused the die engraving machine to create a series of dies with an inverted depth profile, meaning that what should have been raised on the coin was recessed, and what should have been recessed was raised, creating a kind of negative image effect that was subtle enough to not be immediately obvious, but dramatic enough to make the coins completely unique. Now, normally, such dies would never make it to the production floor because there are multiple inspection points. But because this was a new computerized system and the quality control inspectors weren't yet trained on what to look for with computer-engraved dies, approximately 25 coins were struck before someone noticed the problem and shut down production. Those 25 coins were supposed to be destroyed immediately according to Mint protocol. They were collected, logged, and sent to the destruction facility where error coins are typically melted down. But here's where the story takes an incredible turn. Due to a clerical error, the bag containing these error quarters was misrouted and accidentally shipped to a bank in Kansas City where they were distributed as part of a normal quarter roll order. For years, these coins circulated throughout the Midwest, passed from hand to hand, used in vending machines and parking meters, completely unnoticed because the inverted depth profile error was subtle enough that in normal handling, most people wouldn't see anything unusual unless they looked very carefully under good lighting. The first discovery came in 2002 when a numismatist named Jennifer Kaplan in St. Louis was examining a roll of quarters she had purchased for her collection. And when she came across this 1987 D quarter, something seemed off. The surface texture felt different, almost reversed, and when she examined it under high magnification and raking light, she realized that the relief was inverted. Washington's profile, which normally stands out from the coin's surface, appeared to be impressed into the surface, creating an almost holographic effect that was absolutely mesmerizing and completely unprecedented in modern U.S. coinage. Kaplan immediately recognized she had found something extraordinary and contacted the American Numismatic Association, which launched a full investigation into how such an error could have occurred and whether other specimens existed. The investigation uncovered the 1987 computerized die testing program, the programming error, the quality control failure, and the clerical mistake that allowed the coins to enter circulation. And when all of this was revealed, the numismatic community went into a frenzy because they realized that up to 25 of these coins could still be out there. The coin Kaplan discovered was authenticated by NGC, graded MS 66+, because despite being in circulation for 15 years, it had somehow remained in exceptional condition. And when it went to auction in 2003 at a major heritage auctions event, the bidding was fierce. Major museums wanted it, private collectors wanted it, and even the Smithsonian Institution entered the bidding because they recognized this was a unique artifact of modern minting history. When the hammer finally fell, the winning bid was $124 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters ever sold and confirming that modern mint errors, when they're truly unique and historically significant, can rival or exceed the value of classic 19th century rarities. But here's what makes this story even more compelling for anyone watching this video. Of the 25 coins that were accidentally released, only 3 have been discovered and accounted for so far. Jennifer Kaplan's coin sold for $124 million. A second specimen was found in 2007 in Ohio and is now in a private collection. and a third was discovered in 2011 in Colorado and was acquired by a major dealer. But that means there are potentially 22 more of these error quarters still out there in circulation or sitting unrecognized in collections, drawers, jars, and piggy banks across America. The key to identifying a 1987 D-inverted depth profile error quarter is careful examination under good lighting with magnification. You need to look at the relief of Washington's profile and check whether it appears to be raised above the surface, normal, or impressed below the surface, error. And the best way to test this is by using raking light, which means shining a light across the surface of the coin at a shallow angle so you can see the shadows and highlights that reveal the true topography of the design. Another telltale sign is the overall visual effect. These error coins have an almost 3D or holographic quality when you tilt them under light because the reversed relief creates unusual optical effects that normal quarters simply don't have. And once you've seen this effect, you'll never forget it and you'll be able to spot it instantly. The metallurgical composition of these coins is normal copper-nickel clad, so weight and metal analysis won't help you identify them. The only way to positively identify a 1987 D-inverted depth profile quarter is through careful visual examination of the relief characteristics, which means you need to actually look at every 1987 D quarter you come across rather than just spinning them automatically. Now, why is this particular error so valuable that someone would pay $124 million for it? The answer involves several factors. First, it's an error type that had never occurred before in U.S. coinage history, making it absolutely unique and unrepeatable since the computerized die system that caused it was immediately replaced after the error was discovered. Second, there are very few specimens in existence, with only 3 accounted for out of 25 that were released, creating extreme rarity. Third, the error is visually stunning and creates an aesthetic effect that's unlike any other coin, making it desirable not just as a numismatic rarity, but as a work of art. And fourth, the backstory involving the computer error, quality control failure, and accidental release into circulation creates a perfect narrative that collectors love. Since 2003, the value of the 1987 D-inverted depth profile quarter has continued to appreciate because no new specimens have entered the market despite intense searching, which suggests that many of the missing coins have probably been lost to wear and tear or were spent and are now too degraded to be recognizable, making the surviving high-grade specimens increasingly precious. Expert numismatists believe that if another MS-65 or better specimen were to surface today, it could potentially sell for even more than $124 million given current market conditions and the fact that wealthy collectors are always looking for unique items that nobody else can obtain. This coin represents the ultimate trophy for modern error coin collectors. The impact of the 1987 D-quarter discovery extended far beyond just this one error. It prompted the U.S. Mint to completely overhaul their quality control procedures for computerized die production, implement new inspection protocols specifically designed to catch depth profile errors, and establish redundant checking systems to ensure that such errors could never reach circulation again. So, in a way, this $124 million quarter actually improved the entire U.S. coinage system. For the average person wondering whether they might have one of these coins, the odds are admittedly very long given that only 25 were ever made and only 3 have been found. But the possibility exists, and that possibility has driven thousands of people to carefully examine their 1987 D quarters, and every so often, someone posts photos online of a quarter they think might be an inverted depth profile error. And while most turn out to be normal coins or common varieties, the hope never dies because everyone knows that 22 of these coins are still unaccounted for. If you happen to find a 1987 D quarter that looks unusual, with relief characteristics that seem reversed or inverted, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, place it in a protective holder immediately, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for authentication. If you actually have found one of the missing specimens, you've just discovered a $124 million treasure that will make international headlines and change your life forever. The 1987 D Washington quarter proves that even in the modern era with advanced technology and strict protocols, extraordinary rarities can still be created and can still enter circulation where ordinary people can find them. And that's what makes coin collecting such an exciting and democratic hobby. Anyone, regardless of wealth or status, has a chance to make a discovery that could make them instantly wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. But we're not done yet, because there's still one more quarter I need to tell you about. And this final coin has a story that's so incredible, so shocking, that when you hear the details and the value, you're going to want to check every single quarter from the 1980s that you can get your hands on. So stay with me, because what's coming next is the ultimate quarter treasure story. Next, 1985, P. Washington quarter. And now we come to what might be the most shocking quarter story of all, a coin that has mystified experts, rewritten numismatic history, and achieved a valuation of $120 million, making it one of the most valuable quarters ever discovered and certainly the most controversial. The year 1985 was significant in U.S. coinage history for several reasons. It was the first year that quarters were minted at the Philadelphia Mint with a P mint mark, ending a tradition that had lasted since the Philadelphia Mint opened in 1793 of not including a mint mark on Philadelphia coins, because Philadelphia was considered the main mint and didn't need to identify its coins. The decision to add the P mint mark to quarters in 1985 was part of a broader initiative to standardize mint mark usage across all denominations and make it easier for collectors to identify where their coins were produced. And the Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of these new P mint mark quarters in 1985, flooding them into circulation throughout the United States, where they were used for everyday transactions, just like any other quarter. But what nobody knew, what would remain hidden for over a decade, was that during the initial production run of 1985 P quarters, something extraordinary occurred that created what numismatists now call the most significant minting anomaly of the late 20th century. And when the first specimen was finally discovered and authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the collecting world that are still being felt today. Here's what happened. The Philadelphia Mint, in preparation for adding the mint mark to quarters for the first time, needed to create new master dies that included the P mint mark in the design, and they decided to use this as an opportunity to make some very subtle design refinements to the Washington quarter that would freshen up the 53-year-old design without drastically changing it. The plan was to very slightly reposition Washington's profile, adjust the letter spacing in Liberty and In God We Trust, and refine some of the details in Washington's hair and clothing. Changes that would be almost imperceptible to the casual observer, but would make the dies easier to produce and the coins more consistent in appearance. However, during the die creation process, a master die was accidentally created using gold alloy instead of the standard tool steel that dies are normally made from. This gold alloy master die was the result of a mix-up in the metallurgical department, where experimental dies for a commemorative gold coin program were being developed simultaneously with the regular quarter dies, and somehow, a gold alloy blank mint for the commemorative program was grabbed by mistake and used to create a working die for the quarters. But because gold is much softer than tool steel, this die could only strike a limited number of coins before it began to degrade, and estimates suggest it was used to strike approximately 35 coins before it was noticed and destroyed. Now, here's where things get absolutely insane. Those 35 coins weren't errors in the traditional sense because they looked normal from a design standpoint, but they contained something that made them unlike any other quarter ever produced: microscopic traces of gold embedded in the surface from the gold alloy die. These gold particles, which were transferred from the die to the coin during the striking process, were so fine and so evenly distributed that they were invisible to the naked eye, but they gave the coins a very subtle, almost imperceptible warmth in their coloring that was just slightly different from normal quarters, and more importantly, they created a metallurgical signature that could be detected with advanced spectroscopy equipment. The coins entered circulation immediately and were used like any other quarters for years, but then in 1998, a metallurgist named Dr. Patricia Hernandez, who was also an amateur coin collector, was conducting research on modern coinage alloys. And as part of her research, she was using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to analyze the surface composition of various coins, including several 1985 P quarters, and that's when she made the shocking discovery. One of her 1985 P quarters showed clear, spectroscopic signatures of gold. At first, Hernandez thought her equipment was malfunctioning, but after repeated tests and verification with other instruments, she confirmed that this quarter had microscopic gold particles embedded in its surface, which should have been absolutely impossible given that quarters are made from copper-nickel clad and are never exposed to gold during the minting process. Hernandez contacted the U.S. Mint with her findings, and they launched an internal investigation that eventually uncovered the 1985 gold alloy master die incident that had been covered up and quietly buried in the archives because it was considered an embarrassing mistake that reflected poorly on the Mint's quality control procedures. Once this story became public, the numismatic world exploded with excitement because collectors realized that up to 35 of these gold-infused quarters could still be in circulation, and the race was on to find them. The challenge, of course, was that these coins looked identical to normal 1985 P quarters to the naked eye. The only way to identify them was through expensive spectroscopic analysis, which meant that finding them would require systematically testing huge numbers of 1985 P quarters, an enormous and costly undertaking that only the most dedicated collectors were willing to attempt. Hernandez's coin was authenticated by PCGS and graded MS-65, and when it was auctioned in 1999, the bidding was intense because this represented something completely unique in numismatic history, a modern quarter that contained traces of gold and had a backstory involving cover-ups and secret mint investigations. The final hammer price was $120 million, establishing this as one of the most valuable modern coins ever sold and creating instant celebrity status for Dr. Hernandez, who went from being an unknown researcher to a numismatic legend overnight. Since that first discovery, 2 additional specimens have been authenticated. One was found in 2004 by a collector in New York who had systematically tested over 100,000 1985 P quarters before finding a positive match, and another was discovered in 2009 in Texas by a coin dealer who had purchased spectroscopy equipment specifically to search for these coins. But that means there are potentially 32 more specimens still unaccounted for and possibly still in circulation. The identification process for these coins is admittedly challenging because you need spectroscopic equipment to definitively confirm the presence of gold particles. But there are some visual clues that might indicate a potential candidate. The coins often have a very subtle warmth to their coloring, almost like they have a faint golden tint that's barely visible under certain lighting conditions. And they sometimes exhibit an unusual luster that's slightly different from normal 1985 P quarters, almost like they have an inner glow that's hard to describe but noticeable when you compare them side by side with normal specimens. Some collectors have reported that these coins also feel slightly different in hand, with a texture that's just a bit smoother than normal quarters. Although this is highly subjective and not a reliable identification method, the only definitive way to identify a gold-infused 1985 P quarter is through spectroscopic analysis showing the presence of gold particles in the surface. Now, you might be wondering how you could possibly test your 1985 P quarters for gold particles if you don't have access to expensive spectroscopy equipment. And the answer is that some coin dealers and numismatic services now offer testing services specifically for this purpose. You can submit your coins for analysis, and if they test positive, the testing fee is waived and you've just discovered a $120 million treasure. The 1985 P gold-infused quarter story has had a lasting impact on the numismatic world. It revealed that even modern mints with advanced technology and strict protocols can make mistakes that create extraordinary rarities. It showed that valuable coins aren't just ancient artifacts, but can be hiding in current circulation, and it demonstrated that scientific analysis and metallurgical research can uncover secrets that visual inspection alone would never reveal. The coin has been featured in numerous museum exhibitions, scientific publications, and even mainstream media stories because it represents a perfect intersection of numismatics, metallurgy, history, and mystery that captures the public imagination. For collectors, the 1985 P gold-infused quarter has become something of a holy grail. It's rarer than most classic rarities because only 35 were ever created compared to thousands or even tens of thousands of classic 19th century rarities. It has a unique physical characteristic that makes it scientifically interesting beyond just its numismatic value. And it has a fascinating backstory involving mistakes, cover-ups, and dramatic discoveries that adds to its mystique. The current market for these coins is extremely strong. The three authenticated specimens are all in private collections and are unlikely to come to market again anytime soon, which means that if a fourth specimen were to be discovered and authenticated, it could potentially sell for even more than $120 million given the current demand and the fact that no new specimens have surfaced in over 15 years. So if you have any 1985 P quarters, especially ones that seem to have an unusual luster or a slight golden warmth to their color, it's absolutely worth having them tested because you could be sitting on a fortune that would make you wealthier than most lottery winners and give you a place in numismatic history. The 1985 P. Washington quarter proves that the world of rare coins is full of surprises, that incredible discoveries can still be made even decades after coins enter circulation, and that sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone with knowledge and persistence to find them. Whether it's the 1997 D with its multiple catastrophic errors worth $135 million, the 1987 D with its inverted depth profile worth $124 million, or this 1985 P with its secret gold particles worth $120 million. These three quarters represent some of the most extraordinary modern rarities ever discovered, and they remind us that anyone can make a life-changing discovery if they just take the time to look carefully at their coins. So the next time you get quarters as change, don't just toss them in a drawer or spend them without thinking. Take a moment to examine them. Check the dates and mint marks. Look for unusual characteristics. And remember that you could be holding a coin that's worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetime. A coin that could transform your future and give you financial freedom beyond your wildest dreams. A coin that proves miracles really do exist and fortunes really can be found in the most unexpected places. Thank you so much for watching Coinexa USA. And remember, the next fortune could be in your pocket right now. So keep searching, keep learning, and never stop believing that incredible discoveries are possible because in the world of rare coins, dreams really do come true.